like to introduce Todd Schmidt, who's here from the village of Waunakee. I first saw Todd speak at Arts Wisconsin sponsors an Arts Day in Madison. It's their Arts Advocacy Day at the Capitol, and Todd gave a presentation there. I talked to Ann Katz, and she said he would be a perfect person to kick off this event. And I will let Todd tell you all about him, his background, and why he's here to talk to you. So thank you, Todd.
This thing is meaty right here. Just don't look in my pocket. All right. It's good to be. I would say it's good to be back. Back in '98, I was hired as an intern for the city of Janesville as I was studying public administration. So, a little bit of my stomping ground here. I went off to the Milwaukee area for a while, and I came back as the city administrator in Milton. I was hired there in, 2000, something like that. And I worked there for over 7 years. So obviously very connected in with this region, born and raised in Elkhorn. So I'm kind of a product of this space here. So glad to be back. I do believe that when heat indices approach 100 degrees, that ties should not be worn. I wanted to tell you that I thought about it, and I brought a tie. I actually brought a tie, but I'm choosing not to wear it. So I hope nobody takes offense to my lack of professionalism in my presentation. Are we okay with that? Okay. All others wearing ties are welcome to remove them now. You may begin now. So this thing, creative economy. I think my goal today is my hope is to paint the picture of what that term means in today's world, and specifically what it means here and how we've started to explore it in Waunakee. That's my goal. I don't think I'm going to be presenting you with a model that you can take away from, but more a general understanding, which probably is a good way to start your series, probably the perfect way to start your series. So what is it? Let me tweak this question and ask, what isn't creative economy? I think you can find that it could be so many things. There's your typical aspects of creativity. I mean, you look at the photos here, obviously. Boy, that's creative. Art, music, sculpture, etc. It's obvious. Well, in Waunakee, a year or so ago, we went about trying to explore what else is creative in our own little village. By the way, quick information about Waunakee. We're right on the north side of the lake across from the Capitol, about 9 miles from the Capitol Dome as the crow flies. We're a community of 12,300 people. We've changed dramatically in 20 years. We've doubled in population. So our population is very, very new, changing and still growing. So very much a bedroom community. A lot of people leave and work in Madison, Sun Prairie, other areas. But we do have a decent commercial and industrial base as well. But take a peek at this. So my point in showing that it's beyond the paintbrush, this creative thing. You saw in that video images from D&S Dental Labs. They make, I've got 4 of them in my mouth. They make false teeth implants, and they design them, and it's really a craft. You saw images from Endress Manufacturing, which fabricates steel. You saw images from Thomas Steel and Madrax, which is a company that makes custom-designed bike racks, benches, park benches, the tables at the Monona Terrace, stuff like that are manufactured there. All those things bringing in creativity and creative economy. So here we're definitely diving right into industry alongside of the dance studio, the piano lessons, and etc. So again, we're talking about atypical creativity. This is a GIS drawing of a gear drive, which is manufactured at Nordgear, which is a German-held company but has North American headquarters in Waunakee. So the artistry, the CAD design artistry that goes into doing something like that is dramatically creative. I think my point is that creativity is what the human mind, our human intellect, is able to create. Where we start with nothing and we can turn it into something simply by virtue of what's inside our head. So that's the base definition that at least I'm working from, nothing into something in terms of what creativity is. And building that into our economy is the trick. Examples of nothing into something from communities across our country. Plymouth, Wisconsin, blank wall on the side of a building, how about a mural? Janesville's been pretty good at that. How about an intersection? Now, this might freak you out. Don't worry. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, does every year a zombie walk. Have you guys heard of that? Mm-hmm. So it might seem kind of weird. It definitely is creative, but you want to talk about economy? The hotels in Pittsburgh are filled with zombies for days and days. That is definitely creating economy.
You guys have never been to South Florida.
No comment. I'm being recorded. I especially like the dog zombie. That's a good one. So it goes into festivals as well. All right. So I'm going to be doing some mind reading today in the process, and you're saying, okay, Todd, we kind of get that, but what can it do for us here? Well, there are some trends in economic development that have talked about historically 3 keys to economic development. The first 3 up here, business attraction, business retention, and business expansion, the basic 3s. Well, economic development has changed in recent years to include quality of life and community development, community building as a component of economic development. So when we talk about creative economy, I see it putting emphasis on those pieces of the economic puzzle. And when you can work to address those, you also affect the first 3. Ann Katz, who's going to be visiting you from Arts Wisconsin in a few weeks, maybe, has said that it's about investing in human talent, community, and creativity when she's talking about economic development. People are the main driver of economic development. So when we talk about community and quality of life, those things have a focus on the people component to our economy. Some of you may have read recent work of Rebecca Ryan. She's out of the Madison area, wrote a great book, Live First, Work Second. It's talking about today's, the new generations entering the workforce and what's driving their interests. Well, she has done, and her team have done research, and they found that 3 out of 4 Americans under the age of 28 said that a cool city is more important to them than a cool job. So decisions are being made. If we back up those slides and look at the bottom 2 things in that list of things related to economic development, quality of life and community, hello, you're going right at the 3 out of 4 that are under 28. You're hitting right at them. I'm going to do a couple of videos. They're each 2 or 3 minutes long, but it's worth the time for you to see what other places are doing and how they've defined creative economy. So let's take a little bit little bit of time and watch Mississippi at First. The guy in the video is kind of a quiet talker, so you'll need to kind of tune into this one.
Creative economy is a relatively new term in this country. It's one discussed. The word has only been used for about 30 years, so it's not surprising that many people wonder precisely what it is. But the creative economy is made up of, in our case in Mississippi, creative people, creative enterprises, and creative communities. So there's also in Mississippi both for-profit and non-profit. So it's museums looked at right next to film companies and architects and professors. So it's Viking and Kiwi and the Mary C.O. Keith side by side. One is for-profit and non-profit. Both are in the creative economy. Each one has a unique and original sort of base. It's not something that's replicated, it's original, it's authentic, and it is about creating something unique. So whether it's a painting, or a camera, or a guitar, or an experience, it's all about an authentic experience, and it is about something that is creative and has an aesthetic quality. The creative economy allows communities to tell their story. What we do in the creative economy is we encourage communities to embrace, to articulate, and tell their own story. And in doing the telling, two things occur. One is they create an economy around heritage and culture and tourism. It's the creative economy. And then the other is it builds civic pride, which is about the community sort of accepting and agreeing on what their story is and then telling it collectively. So it achieves two things at once. It achieves a new economy and it also helps build human pride.
So I love the fact that he talked about community pride. We're getting back to the people part of the whole economic initiative. The other thing I like about this example, which I think is a good dovetail to the Janesville region, is you're a very industrial-based and industrial-grown community. Here you saw, in this video, a maker of kitchen appliances that were dovetailing with guitar manufacturers and museums. So they were connecting all of those together. This next slide, it doesn't have any, no speaking to you, but I want you to follow along and read it because LA and the LA region did a study of the impact of creative economy directly on, I guess, the nuts and bolts of economic drivers. What are people spending? How many people have jobs related to things creative, intellect type jobs? So we're going to spend a few minutes and watch this as well. It'll be a bit of a data dump on you, but I think it's worthwhile. So the theme in what you saw here, and even in those images from LA, of all the images you saw, the little people thing come up. I mean, that's the huge part of what creative economy is about. Experiences, telling stories, civic pride, professionals, transforming ideas. Those are all topics that you heard in that conversation. And I think the interesting thing about creative economy is you can't ship it off. It can't be mass produced overseas or anywhere else because it's a product of human intellect. So when you want to talk about sustainable industry, sustainable ideas, things that we're able to keep and hold and aren't at risk of it flying elsewhere, well, let's talk about business, industry, and efforts that require human intellect for the outcome. All right, now you're thinking, all right, Todd, come on, bring it back home. All right, so relevance here in Wisconsin, I want to talk about what exactly we've done in the past 2 years since we started our initiative. We started out with a planning process about 2 years ago, and I give tremendous credit to my village board who gave this brand new village administrator like this much rope to try this thing called creative economy. And really at that point, the thought of it had not been spoken in Waunakee. There were little dabbles of creative things occurring around the village, but never been thought of as a component of our overall economic strategy. So this is very, very new to us, and I would say we're still in the very early stages of exploring. But we brought an array of community folks together, citizens at large, people from the school district, some folks from the region who specialize in this work, city leaders, school district leaders, chamber leaders, business leaders, and so on. And we got together and we basically did an inventory of a creative inventory of our community, an asset inventory, and figure out what we've got. And then what we then did was made a few decisions on how to explore it further. I could spend a lot of time about the outcome from this, but I'll touch on one specifically. And that was we wanted to uncover and explore what was all creative in our village and reveal it. Let's reveal it to one and another. That's where the idea of our imagination celebration came about. You've got two things in front of you. One, the glossy one was mailed out to every post office box in our village to promote the event, as well as talk about what it was going to be. The green was the program from the event. Now, the goal of this day, it was June 21st last year, was to do three key things. One, again, like I said, reveal the hidden nodes of creativity that existed in the village, perhaps to surprise one another about what we found, and then to hopefully create some connections with the people that came together in that place. And from there, hopefully, things would happen. Now, all of that was kind of on the outside and obvious to our effort. For me as village administrator, what I was thinking about in all this was the fact that I felt that this could, and I'm not bashful to say it, could help bolster the love affair that people who live in Waunakee have with their village. So, and there we're starting to get, again, I'm going back to this quality of life and community sense of economic development. So I was really interested in seeing that the day after this event happened, people would feel just a little bit more connected to the village than they did the day before. So a little bit about the event. First of all, we've never done it before. This creative economy concept was relatively unknown in Waunakee, which is why you look in the materials and it doesn't even say the word creative economy on it. So it's an unknown commodity. It was happening right in the middle of the week. Little community, about 12,000 people. It was a beautiful, beautiful day, but the event was indoors at the high school. There were no sales allowed. So we put out a request for vendors. You see the list of vendors in that green brochure. But we were telling these folks, you can come, but you can't sell anything. We just want you to reveal what is it that makes you creative? So we were up against a few things, weren't we? Well, at the end of the day, when we counted how many programs we went through, it appeared that we had about 1,500 people involved in one way, shape, or form, either attending or participating. That's like, what does that add up to? Over 10% of the whole village. Really blew our mind. Kind of showed us that we were onto something here, that there's room for this. A few photos from the event. This is about half of the exhibit space. Oh, the most popular booth by far, right there, are the group of 4 middle school girls who called themselves Duct Tape Divas. They made all sorts of things out of duct tape. Purses, slippers, wallets, flowers, you name it, they were making it, and that booth had a line all day long. They did a great job. Milhouse Quilts is a local business. They have a quilters group. They were there. We had a lot of the performing arts groups do performances throughout the day, piano recitals, dance, and more. We had the local, we had a florist come in and do programs on floral arrangement. We had the Piggly Wiggly come in and the bakery gave a demonstration of cake decorating. We had a wall of creativity where we asked folks creativity is and let them answer it. So this is a canvas now. It's rolled up down in my office. And I imagine when we maybe build a new village hall or a new library someday, this will be a part of our construction. And the coolest part about this is some of the comments up here were pretty dry, not that creative. But when you get down here, you saw some really neat stuff. And I think you can probably figure out why. We had an instrumental petting zoo. Ward brought in and a range of different instruments, and it was loud and fun and crazy, and that type of stuff happened. We topped off the night with the Waunakee Community Band concert, and I think we achieved greater affection for our village as a result. There has been clamor for doing this again, and we're figuring that out. So when I go back to my village board and say, hey, can I have another X thousand dollars to do stuff like this, they're going to say, what's the bottom line for us? What's the village gaining? Any smart elected body is going to ask that type of question, and I don't blame them for it one bit. So I've got probably 2 handfuls worth of stories about connections that occurred as a result of that event. Somebody got a job to design someone's website. I personally went, the week after, went to a guy who does wood and Teja, I think it's called, work. I went to his house a week later and bought this beautiful carved angel. So I spent $75 as a result of that. Gave it to my mom for Christmas. I guess that makes me an angel investor. Ba-doom. Come on. All right. So, but here's a good one. Susan Gardner, about it, I would say close to a year after the event, I got a call from Susan about a business she was starting called Art Party Place. I'm like, cool, great, a business. The conversation went a little bit further, and I learned that her dream, her inspiration to start the business occurred because she was an exhibitor at the Imagination Celebration. Look, she's got bricks and mortar business in Waunakee today because of what happened on June 21st, 2012. There is the rubber meeting the road for your elected body and others who maybe need to believe in creative economy. But you still have a challenge in trying to explain this concept to anyone. It's still sort of unknown. So what I'm suggesting is a framework that you or anyone can use in making the argument and framing the conversation. The center point that I would suggest is desirable community. You go back to that early slide where you talk about quality of life and community as parts of a good economic strategy in today's society. So let's focus on desirable community. Again, I put that in there because we want to help people love where they live. So framing this conversation, one certain aspect is business engagement, connecting businesses throughout your community into the process. And I think you saw in my earlier little video that showed the diversity of business that does have relevance in the creative world, whether they know it or think it. Community and organizational collaboration. Again, as I mentioned with the Imagination Celebration, we brought people of very diverse backgrounds from very diverse groups together to reveal and then to sort of rub up against each other to create synergies and make connections that built into more. So that's where community and organizational collaboration will occur by your effort. Creative economy and the work in it is plugging into what people are passionate about. So I'll kind of talk a little bit about what happens to all of us when economy goes bad, when our resources are stretched really thin, and you need to still put gas in the car, and you need to buy your milk and all that stuff, and those prices are going up. What's happening is your expendable income, the extra money, is getting less and less. Now, if your expendable money is getting less and less, I would suggest that what you're going to spend it on, if anything, is what you're most passionate about. As you go far away from your passion point, you probably aren't going to spend the extra dollars. But if you get in close, you're probably still going to spend it on the stuff that really makes your blood flow fast. So if creative economy and the things in creative economy are the things that plug right into what people are passionate about, I think you start to hit at a sustainable economy even in a weak economy. And the other thing, and this is really important for Waunakee, which is a community that some people really don't know where it is. It's out in the boondocks. It sounds like it's way up out in the middle of farm fields. Well, we are kind of in the middle of farm fields, but we're also, right next to Madison. We have that identity crisis. We also have an identity crisis because our population has changed so quickly. There's so many new people. They haven't felt like Waunakee is home yet, necessarily. So to the extent that our work can generate a reputation for Waunakee, and I guess sort of by virtue of me being here in front of you today, says that we're starting to do that, and generates an identity that people connect with, we're starting to create a community in that and strengthening our economic position in our marketplace because people are starting to learn where Waunakee is and what we're about. So that's the framed conversation. I've shown that to my village board. I've shown that to people in the village, and we're starting to understand what this means for us. So quickly, what's next for us? Back 2 years ago, we created a creative economy task force to begin working on this project. This year, we took that task force and we put them into 4 different work groups. One is an event, and we've decided that on November 3rd, we're going to have another Imagination Celebration. This time, we're going to do it with a holiday theme. We don't know exactly what it's going to be yet, and we're in the early stages of designing that event. But I expect it's going to be a lot like what we did before. And that's a result of people saying, after the one in June, they came up to me and said, "You're doing this again, right?" Like there was no doubt in their minds. We also have a spaces work group. Spaces, both physical spaces in the village as well as online spaces. Have any of you heard of Etsy? It's an online selling place for creative people. You should check out what Rockford is doing with Etsy. They have a Rockford Etsy group that has just blown up in size with people who are doing things out of their home and selling. Well, we're designing their model and are exploring potentially a Waunakee Etsy site. We're also looking at underutilized spaces and storefronts, the potential for pop-up art events, and we're also exploring a cooperative arts gallery. There isn't an outlet in Waunakee for local artists to show their work. There's a few stores, but really not the place where you say that's the spot for local art. River Arts, if anybody's been up to Prairie du Sac recently, River Arts has done a great job up there, and that's a model. In fact, I was just there on Monday this week, taking a site visit and looking at what they're doing. We have a planning work group, which I think, Elizabeth, you had said you guys are hoping to think about, and we're designing a multi-year plan along with recommended budget expenditures that we're going to be taking to the village board this September. Finally, we have an education work group, which is still about spreading the awareness message of creative economy, working to brand it for Waunakee, and do messaging to our community and beyond. We do know that we can't be everything in Waunakee. I mean, we're right next to Madison, which is all things creative. So our goal is to figure out what our niche is. What's a niche? I think Spring Green has a niche. I think Galena has a niche. Paoli, Mineral Point, Cedarburg. You can list the names off the top of your head. You know what those communities have accomplished by figuring out what it is what makes them creative and what they can hone into. Waunakee, our goal is to figure out what we want to hone into and then go at it. So part of our strategic plan is to figure that out and then deliberately start to define ourselves that way. Along with great school collaboration rounds out that education work. So going back to nothing into something and the power of the human intellect, I think I want a quick little story and I'll be done. My grandma, Shirley Klug, she died about 10 years ago, but after she died, we collected up some of her stuff, and one was this little bin of costume jewelry. And in it, I found something that I had totally forgotten about. When down at the church they went to in Chicago, Lutheran Church, after the services, there were all these bulletins left over church bulletins, the program or whatever you call it. And though they were nothing, they were trash. At that point, after the service, they were insignificant. And what those church ladies did, along with my grandma, here's an example of it. They took those old programs, and I'll pass these around, and they cut them up into strips, and they rolled them up, and they made necklaces out of them. And they sold them to parishioners and others, and they took what otherwise was insignificant, what otherwise was nothing, trash, and they used their human intellect, and they turned it into something. Waunakee and our little village, and I'm proud of my village board, they're taking those bulletins that we've got in Waunakee, we're revealing it, we're exposing it, and we're working into turning it into something that we can sell. Economy, our creative economy. And in the outcome, hopefully, the people who live there are going to fall in love with Waunakee. And the people who are considering locating somewhere are going to find out why Waunakee is worth falling in love with. And then they're going to come to Waunakee, as are the businesses, as are the tourists, as are the employees. That's our reasoning. So enjoy the necklaces as you pass those around, but hats off to Grandma for helping me with that visual aid. So here's my contact information. Again, this presentation will be up on the website. You're welcome to call me if you have further questions, and I applaud all of you for being here and your passion for this subject, because it is going to make a difference for us. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Todd, the event participants, was there like any booth fees or anything?
No, that was the one thing I was really strict about with our committee. I said, do not place any barrier for anybody not to come and reveal their creative side. So this was about zero barriers. The event cost us, it was about $12,000. We raised sponsorships and in-kind services to cover the entire cost. So not a public tax dollar was spent. Although I had, the village board gave me a budget of $5,000, I didn't have to use it. in a lockbox.
I was curious, it seems like there's three players that I can identify in this play, which is the artist and then the creative side, then you have the government side, and you have the business side. Can you talk about how they can, work together that you found more effectively?
I think the beginning process to working together requires communication collaboratively. So that one slide with all the photos of us sitting around tables and talking, that brought everyone together to work on defining what we were looking to do, probing, asking questions, and not barring anybody from participating. So I guess, and I sought out participation with an open invitation to the community as well. So put something in the newspaper and on my blog and on our website and said, hey, this is what we're exploring. Do you have interest in thinking about it? And we got 4 or 5 members of the community who said, I want to kind of jive with that. The chamber is an important partner. So in this case, Forward Janesville would be an important partner. And if they're not going to come to that table, I think it's important for whomever, particularly someone who has a strong reputation in the community, to go to them if they can't make it there. So fostering communication as a start and a basic understanding of the reasoning. I'm still, and that, framing the conversation part, that was hard then. It's still hard now. So it's about beating the drum and continuing to beat it so people can hear it. So I don't know if I answered your question, but communication is the key, and inviting and not having any reason to block out any branch within the community. Yes, sir.
To expand on his.
On the business side, typically there's a what's in it for me aspect, and it's not necessarily a freebie as far as they're concerned. So what was the incentive? Some of your slides show business integration. How did they grasp that? Or was it complimentary in the initial stages?
That's a really tough one because you're exactly right. The businesses are very focused on their mission. To take time to figure out something like this, besides maybe writing a check for a couple $1,000s to support the event, which was easy for a few businesses, to send people, to take the time is harder. So one of the components of the plan that we're drafting up is to suggest the potential for a grant program. Now, not approved yet, and I haven't even asked the village board. So if any of my village board members are watching this, don't worry, I'm going to ask first. But we're talking about the possibility of opening up a grant program that would allow us to share the cost with the business of bringing in a consultant to specifically look at aspects of creativity within their business that can be used to improve their business model. So we're doing a what's in it for them. Hey, here's a couple $1,000. If you want to participate, we're going to bring in the right person with reputation in your industry to specifically look at creative components of your business. So we're having to go, you need to go in with the proposition for them. And I would say that we haven't gotten there yet. Our strategy is too infant at this point.
Some of the business.
Many business objectives have a creative component within, meaning that when they want to hire somebody, they not only want to know what experience they bring, but they want to know what creativity they bring. Has that aspect been explored so that they can come in with a mindset that maybe there's an opportunity here where I can find somebody that can help my business or allow our business to expand or improve?
I think that could definitely be part of it, part of the recruitment effort. I do think that if Waunakee, if we become known as a place that's welcoming of creativity, the place where people want to live, I think we could potentially be helping businesses who want to attract creative people. That's one of our challenges in Waunakee for our local businesses is that there's a lot of options in the Madison region for people to find a place to live. But what would make them want to live in Waunakee and live close to where they work? So I think we can maybe dovetail with that a little bit, but that's definitely an avenue that we could work with businesses. Yeah.
What would you suggest for Waunakee is smaller than Janesville, obviously, but Janesville has a lot of events that occur, and unless they're a big name event like the ski people, or like the Jets just had their tryouts, or you don't even hear about it. There was some event that was held for like the Main Street businesses that some of the businesses on the street didn't even hear about it. I saw a poster in the store that made the posters for it. That's why I knew about it after the fact. And so this community is not good at telling the right hand what the left foot is doing.
Well, it's part of why everybody in the same room to talk about what you're doing is important. To the extent that you can find a one-stop shop for that information would be important. You do have to end up admitting in this effort and everything like this that people are all very busy, and you can lead them to the water, but you can't make them drink. So to some extent, you got to assume that you're not going to be able to reach everybody. But if you can establish the clearinghouse, the place to go, the website, the blog to subscribe to, the Facebook page, the LinkedIn group, or maybe a combination of all of those, where there's confidence and all the parties agree that that can work for all, that might be something that could help you. But it's easy to be discouraged when you don't. I mean, sometimes you just scratch your head. Where is everybody, or why didn't I know about this? Delivering the messages is tricky. I think it'll still be tricky forever because of the nature of human beings. But I think those couple ideas are a way to start. And maybe you've been thinking about that already. Yep.
Just quickly in response to that, I've been involved with events that use billboard, radio, newspaper, online, signs, posters, and people still say they never heard about it. So if you're not looking for information that's going on in the community, you're not going to find it. It could be right in front of your face. My question is, Waunakee, are you a one high school community? I see that in Janesville as something that could become an issue. We're very much an east side, west side type community. Do you have any insight into how to combat some of that?
Well, Waunakee is interesting. We're not east side, west side, but we're new and old.
We have some of that going on too.
There's a road that goes, Woodland goes right through the middle of Waunakee, and so many of the new folks, the newer properties live on the south side of that, and others are on the north side. So that's our challenge, which maybe is similar to yours. And creating something that people can rally around is the key. Waunakee lacks, as I said earlier, a really strong identity of what it is as a village. There's not much to speak of for our downtown, although we're doing some streetscaping in the next couple of years. So we really need to build our identity for ourselves. I think Janesville's got a lot going for it in that already. How can you gain a point to rally around? And maybe that's a new version of the brand as it relates to creativity. What is it in the heart that you think you could connect everybody's passion to, whether they're east or west?
Even just location-wise, though, that becomes an issue. You used the Waunakee High School, for example. Well, we have two high schools, so if you use one, then people are going to be mad because you didn't use the other one.
But you have something that we don't. Here.
But the kind of space you're talking about, this isn't that kind of space. That's the only thing that I've kind of pulled from this as where a problem could come up for our community versus a one high school community. And I know you don't have all the answers.
Yeah. No, I think doing an asset inventory of the places that provide an opportunity for you would be important. Pontiac Convention Center, there's places in Janesville. I think you're much better positioned than we are. Again, like I said, we were starting from zip. You have this. Tanya and I, my wife and I, were season ticket holders at the Armory. And I know they've changed some of their focus, but you have stuff occurring here that is years and years beyond where Waunakee stands today. So I think Janesville is really fortunate that way. And look at the room of people who are here today. You have, even though it's not 10% of your population, you've got a force of interested people. So I think there's opportunity there. You got to figure out what can go in that heart. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
it strikes me that there's a lot of talent in town. There's a lot of good things that are already going on. But I've lived here for about 12 years, and it seems like there's this, like we have a collective self-confidence problem in Janesville. Like, if it's in Janesville, it can't be good. And I think that's, I see that in the turnout for shows and people participating for events. And there's this, like, even if the event is free, people will complain about it. There's this pervasive, like, self-confidence issue, or I don't know if it's self-confidence issue or negativity, and I don't know how you, and all these people in this room I know have worked really hard on that, how you get over that bump, how you push people to, acknowledge what is really great about what we have already.
To be proud instead of to be in competition. I think that's what I see.
Yeah.
Send them to Waunakee.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're talking about. When you talk about Parker versus Craig and East versus West, and we're not collectively proud. We are competing, and what do we do about that? I don't know.
But I would guess, though, that all the competing people and all the competing organizations, if one independent party went to each one and asked them about their frustrations or concerns, I bet you'd get a very similar list put together. So is there room, is there potential, or has it been done where you engage those groups and have them rub up against each other to see where there's common needs and interests? Find the rallying point. I bet there's been some sort of efforts to try and do that, but is that what requires more effort?
The other thing we need to do is Janesville has a ton of talent. Some of it's untouched, but we also have to understand exactly what you said. Some people have already asked these questions. It's a matter, truly, if you look at the question, what should we do to encourage creativity? We have to personally do this. We have to personally say, I had a great experience last weekend in Janesville. I saw this wonderful play, Joseph. I was excited. I was thrilled. These kids are fantastic. We need to say that. We need to say, did you get the Gaelic Storm tickets? Did you really do that, Jim? Because if you haven't done that, I am going to be very, very upset. And you need to talk among yourselves and say, Janesville's having an Irish Fest. I don't have to drive to Milwaukee. You need to say things to your friends and family because you say, what makes you happy? What is your passion? My passion is children. I don't have any. I've taught thousands. My passion is kids. Somebody turned to me at JPEC and said, who are you here for? And I said, everyone. Everyone. They asked me why I'm here. Are we kind of weird people that we support kids? You need to be proud of that. And you need to say that. You need to thank those kids. It can't be somebody else's problem. It's our problem. Because if it disappears in Janesville, I grew up here, all but 7 years of my life. This town is down, but it is not out. And it can be a great town. You don't have to say, well, my name isn't so-and-so. I wasn't a great kid in high school. I was terrible. But I'm still that person. So we need to get confidence. We need to say we do great things.
I'm hearing what you're saying.
Hallelujah.
I'm hearing what you're saying is that Janesville has a pile of church bulletins, which is fortunate for you. It's fortunate. It's fortunate. Not everybody even has that. So you've got this pile of stuff. You got to weave it. You got to turn it into a necklace.
First of all, a huge thank you to Todd for coming down.
You're welcome.
It is
Glad to be here.
awesome to have you. Thank you.
Yep.